more trouble for MAGA kids on high school campuses, Christian colleges banning Christian speakers while inviting anti-Christian speakers, and progressive privilege rears its head. Very rich Hollywood moms and dads bribing their kids into schools without credentials. Next on The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, America. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Every week, Katie and I cover those stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses across the world. And speaking of the world, a shout out to faithful listener, Matthew Bates, because he lives in Australia, and that, I think, is kind of far away. Greetings to all of our listeners. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode. Katie, your life is in tatters. Aunt Becky from Full House. This is your whole childhood. Sitting in front of the TV, watching bad sitcoms with a plate of macaroons. And now we've got what? Uncle Jesse's on a Botox drip to keep the wrinkles away. Dave Coulier's fallen off the face of the earth. The Olsen twins have grown up to be anorexic billionaire recluses. And now Lori Loughlin is busted for trying to buy her kids' way into an expensive college. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but do you have any immediate, the world wants to know, Katie, are you going to be okay?
I haven't slept a wink since I heard the news. My life is in tatters.
All right, we'll come back to that story. First, Ash Wednesday, one of the holiest days of the year for Roman Catholics, and a very important day anyway because it begins the 40-day season of Lent. We have a situation from Utah where this previous March 6th, Ash Wednesday, a young boy showed up to his school, William McLeod, fourth grader, Valley View Elementary School in Bountiful, Utah, with the telltale ashes on his head. A lot of students were asking this kid. This is the thing that puzzles me a little bit. We're so far removed. Just 25 years ago, 10 years ago, it was pretty universal when people saw ashes, they knew what it was. But this young boy encountered a situation where all his school fellows were asking him, what does that mean? What does that mean? And that's one thing, but his unnamed teacher, a Mrs. P, was utterly perplexed by the smudge on his forehead. She took me aside and she said, this is according to William, she took me aside and she said, you have to take it off. She gave me a disinfection wipe, whatever they are called, and she made me wipe it off. The school principal and teacher called William's grandmother. So not just the teacher, the principal. Upset grandma, and this is my favorite part of the story.
And I asked her if she read the Constitution of the First Amendment, and she said no and oh.
So there you sort of have it, Katie.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to me. At this point, poor William honestly was more likely to be asked if he had blackface on than to know that it was the ashes for Ash Wednesday. And this Mrs. P, because that's all the name we know about her, the fact that at least she was honest in saying, no, I haven't read the Constitution. That's something, I guess. But William's in fourth grade, and his teacher has no understanding of the Constitution and his right to come into school having celebrated going to, for Ash Wednesday and getting the ashes before school. Now, the district did apologize and said that all faiths should feel welcome in school.
Well, isn't it great that the public school church of progressivism is willing to tolerate other faiths?
I did like, though, when, William, it's fourth grade, he could have been embarrassed when the kids started asking him exactly, what is that on your forehead? But I like his response.
A lot of students ask me what it is. I was like, I'm Catholic's first day of Lent, Ash Wednesday. They celebrate getting closer to God.
I thought it was a really cute thing.
Well, and I think the slogan, right, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, is a perfect summation of the effectiveness of the American public school system.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, the teacher, Mrs. P, may face disciplinary action. It was quite interesting. It's almost like she was bribing William, like, shh, keep it quiet, because she gave him some candy, and she wrote on like a note card, a handwritten apology that said that she hopes the pair can move forward from this.
Again, if she were a savvy public school teacher, she would come out and say, the only reason I did it because I thought minority kids would be offended. And then not only would they not punish her or fire her, they would promote her to some diversity position inside the school.
All right, before we move on, I just want to take a second to thank our viewers for watching this episode. We've received so many encouraging comments about the show, from Australia even, and we really do truly appreciate your feedback. All we ask is that you help us get the word out on the Dr. Duke Show. So share this episode on Facebook, share it on Twitter, YouTube, or the podcast version, share that too. We just want to share this information with as many people as we can.
So put your shrimp on the barbie, mate. And watch the bloody show. No, that wasn't Australian, wasn't that last
No,
part?
that
Have a
I don't know
Foster's
what
lager. Do they still drink that over there?
I'm not even sure. I
Little
haven't been to
kangaroo on the
Australia.
bottom?
You think I can just go down there? All right. Well, on to the next story. We have a group of pro-Trump students who were ordered to leave the MAGA banner. So they were asked to leave school over having a banner. So let's take a look at this. We have a group of students from Perry High School in Gilbert, Arizona, and they decided to wear some pro-Trump apparel because it was a Spirit Day theme, and the Spirit Day theme is Party in the USA. Okay, that makes sense to me. But one student also brought a Trump banner, or a flag as they're calling it, and it said, Make America Great Again. So everything seemed fine. The kids were in school until the lunch hour when the principal, Dan Serrano, said that during lunch, students carrying this political signage, so that banner, caused a disruption and created safety concern. The students were asked to put away the signage, and they complied. So they did exactly what was asked of them. But after the school ended for the day, the students unveiled the sign again in a manner that again caused concern for student safety. Now, this was done outside of the school building, but the principal said that when the school's resource officer asked the students to leave the campus, they declined. And then they refused to respond to the principal's request to give their names, so that basically the principal could get them in trouble. So we had a mother named Jennifer Ferris, and she told the local newspaper that she drove to the school after hearing her kids, what was happening to her kids, that they were asked to remove the pro-Trump clothing. And within 4 minutes of being within that school, the school officials ordered the mom to leave the premises and that she wasn't allowed on campus again.
Yeah, you know what gets me about this story is we now have American public school kids who are leaving school to stand with the Red for Ed protest march. We have American public school students who are using public school time to write posters and billboards, signs for the protesting teachers. We have a bunch of American school kids now across the country planning to walk out of school to protest global warming. We are using these kids in American public schools for every progressive cause imaginable. We are forcing 5-year-olds to sit in their classrooms, their little block and dollhouse kindergarten classrooms, and listen to transgender or transvestite men read them stories about transgenderism. All of that is a perfectly acceptable use of politics in the public schools. But a MAGA hat or an NRA t-shirt or a banner that promotes Trump during a partying weekend or a party week at school is now considered disruptive and wrong. You remember back when Obama became president and we had all those kids who were being forced to sing hymns and anthems of praise to Barack Obama?
We're gonna spread freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Having the Hope and Change logo or Yes We Can on your t-shirt or on a hat in the public schools was considered being politically engaged by 6- and 7-year-olds. The real story here is not that they keep attacking MAGA stuff, because we know that the public schools have given up any pretense of political neutrality. They are educating kids along progressive socialist lines, and of course they're going to come after Christian symbols like ashes on the forehead. Of course they're going to come after any kind of statement that might promote or support a Republican president. But the real story here, again, is not so much the attack on conservative kids. I could live with the attack on conservative kids about their religion or their politics if you were also attacking kids who were expressing left-wing ideology or left-wing hats, left-wing promotions. But you don't. You reward them, you praise them, you encourage them, you hijack these kids out of their own public school classrooms to support your progressive causes like global warming and more money for teachers. So you are censoring and silencing conservative kids and Christian kids while promoting materialist kids, secularist kids, humanist kids, kids who are supporting your progressive agenda. That's the real problem here. And Mom, that is what you call discrimination. That is what you call bigotry. That is what you call time to get your kid out of those schools.
Well, and like you said, if we look specifically just at, if we're going to compare it, Trump to Obama, those songs that were made, those creepy songs, Obama wasn't even president yet, so they were purposely indoctrinating the kids to get him to be president. Donald Trump, newsflash, is our president. So
He's not my president, Patrick. I'm a public school teacher. He ain't my president, Patrick.
So if he is our president and the theme is Party in the USA and the children wear a sweatshirt that says Make America Great Again, I just don't. I cannot put those 4 words into any order to make it sound like it's bad in any way.
And that's the other takeaway from this, guys, right? That a mom showed up simply to find out what's going on and within 4 minutes was banned from the building.
And there's
right?
video. There's video.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
cell phone. Yeah.
Ushered off like a criminal simply for trying to defend her children's right to express themselves like the other kids were on that day.
Yeah, in a positive, potentially a positive, we did have 26 of the GOP Arizona House members sign a letter, and they sent it to the Attorney General Mark Brnovich to look into possible free speech violations at the school. And the Office of the Attorney General says they're looking into, state jurisdiction and all that. So it's quite possible that something will happen, but I'm an optimist. So.
And again, the radical forcing of leftist ideology into the classroom is never challenged by those Republicans. Good for you, Republicans, that when conservative kids are ultimately censored and their parents forced off campus, you can write a letter, but why aren't you writing letters every day about the co-opting of our public school kids to participate in all sorts of left-wing ideology?
That's a good question. Well, since we have such great teachers we're talking about today, we just have a new report that finds 54% of aspiring elementary teachers fail their licensure exam on the first try. Now, that Common Core math, 54, 100% minus, that's 46% pass, which is just frightening. So,
and this is elementary school. We're not talking about
elementary teachers.
We're not talking about high school calculus teachers. We're talking about Dick and Jane, or excuse me, Dick and Dick. With a shout out to our transgender listeners, right?
There we go. We have the National Council on Teacher Quality, NCTQ. They are a nonpartisan research and advocacy group, and they have a new report that says an alarming number of candidates fail their licensing tests, far surpassing the failure rate for other professions' entry tests, bar exams, and boards. In their summary, they state the fact that more candidates fail than pass on their first attempt, and a quarter are never able to earn a passing score. A quarter. That's 25% for those of you who don't know what a quarter means, can never pass and earn a passing score. It raises serious concerns. And even after multiple attempts at passing the most widely used licensure test for teachers, the group NCTQ, they state that only 38% of aspiring black teachers and 57% of prospective Hispanic teachers achieve success. And that's compared to 75% of white teachers. So,
and there you have the out. This is not the a fault of college-educated elementary school majors who cannot perform. More than 50% of them cannot do the rudimentary things it takes to be able to teach elementary school math and reading to their kids. And yet, blacks and the headline, blacks and Hispanics, I'm not surprised women weren't added. Blacks and Hispanics hit hardest. And so what this clearly means is that our elementary educational programs all across this country are irremediably racist. The fact that blacks, only 38% of black wannabe elementary school teachers and only 57% of Hispanic wannabe elementary school teachers can actually do the work. So on the one hand, this is obviously racism, this is obviously white privilege, this is obviously our university education departments, among the most liberal departments in any college campus anywhere, are failing the progressive test. And number two, if we have to lower 2 plus 2, if 2 plus 2 is too hard for our elementary school majors, then we have to get rid of it. Then we have to not teach it in the elementary schools. Maybe we say we reserve 2 plus 2 is 4 and 4 times 4 is 16. Maybe we hold back on that till middle school to give minority teachers a chance to become elementary school. That's one of the ways to fix this, right? Let's lower the standards even further, push rudimentary math off to middle school, where hopefully more of those I'd be willing to bet that about 50% of our middle school teachers, future middle school teachers, can probably about 50% do elementary school math. And so you'd bump that up a little bit, that percentage, right? Maybe we'll go that way with it.
Here's what's most frightening. So in their analysis of the elementary education programs, all right, so this is where our teachers are supposed to go and learn how to become elementary teachers. They found that those students, most of the programs have no literature course, which that didn't shock me. Half of them require a children's literature course. Only 1 in 4 actually cover the breadth of math they need for elementary. Only 1 in 3 are not requiring a history or geography course. And then 2 in 3 don't require a single science course that would be aligned to help. So basically, any of the programs these students, these college students, are going to learn how to be an elementary teacher. They're not doing that. What do you think they're actually learning in college education
programs? And that's
programs?
where I was going to go with this. We are not teaching first, second, and third graders, kindergarten through fourth grade. We are not teaching them the basic foundational skills in any subject, in reading or math or anything else, that will allow them to progressively move through an education system and end up at a fairly high level. We're not doing it. And so here's another point. If we are not really, and you just detailed how we're not, if we're not really actually holding the youngest kids accountable for subject mastery at the opening levels, what's happening? What's happening, as you know, is the removal of much of what used to be the attainment with social justice, with ideology, with, again, transgender normalization, normalizing homosexuality, radically sexualizing these kids, exposing these kids to all sorts of progressive agenda items down the road, social and psycho-development, sociological and psychological development, treatments and protocols is what they're doing. But here's the thing. If you're not, I don't understand the public schools. If you're not teaching real subjects like reading and writing and math and history and geography to little kids, why are you testing them on that? I guarantee you, if you took the 38% of African American teachers who could pass, the 62%, that didn't, the 43% of Hispanic teachers who couldn't pass, the 25% of white teachers who couldn't pass a simple elementary school exam in these subjects, what if you made the test about what was really going on? What if you quizzed them on their progressive values, their bona fides? Give them a test detailing how woke they are. I'll bet you would get 100% passing of that test. And there you'd have your problem solved. If what you're going to do is turn the elementary schools into incubation factories for progressive ideologues, well, then that should be the measure that you evaluate your teachers by.
Well, what's fascinating to me, because I went through the education program and I was secondary education, but we had classes where it was everyone. It was K through 12, future teachers put into the same classroom. And 9 times out of 10, if there was an issue that was brought up that was a progressive issue, like let's talk about transgenderism in school, it was the elementary teachers, the candidates, who wanted to discuss it and fight it and say, yeah, we need to have this, so inclusivity and love and all that stuff. And now secondary sat there and said, well, okay, there's more to look at it than just what you're doing. It happened on many occasions.
And that's the point, right? The higher up the educational scale you go, the higher the order the teacher, the more they would like to set aside the tendentious garbage and really focus on the work, which gets progressively more difficult. But the problem is that now the foundations are gone because you spent your whole time in elementary school washing ashes off kids' heads.
And on top of that, what you talked about with the testing and how these elementary teachers, if we brought up the topic, because that was discussed one day in one of these gen ed courses for education, which obviously taught us nothing, but it was brought up. How would, testings are students in classes, and it was the elementary candidates who said, well, I get such anxiety with testing and all this testing, and we shouldn't test them on anything. And again, our secondary said, well, okay, tests for certain things are necessary, and we, logicked it through. But they were the ones who, maybe because they already knew that they would be failing their own tests in a couple months, but they were the ones who argued against having to do any of that stuff. And then it shows, obviously, when they get into the classroom, if they get into the classroom.
If is the real McCoy there. And again, like I said, how do you keep them out? How do you keep almost 40% of black candidates for education, elementary education? How do you tell them they can't, because of a stupid test, they can't teach? That's not going to stand in progressive America today.
Yeah, and also in progressive America, you can't even speak at a Christian university about things that would be relevant to Christians. We have the University of Northwestern St. Paul refusing to allow on campus to speak someone named Star Parker. She's a conservative political activist and founder of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education.
And she's black.
Yep, and she was going to be sponsored by the Young America's Foundation. So when YAF gets involved, controversy. So YAF chapter president and at UNW, she received an email saying that the university's main concern is that it is an open event. The email went on to say that there were quite a few concerns about STAR. Our staff has been very adamant about bringing speakers to campus who educate and expand worldviews, but we really don't bring speakers who radically hold beliefs that UNW as a whole would not agree with. In the past, UNW has stayed away from sensationalized speakers. I foresee us continuing to do this. After reviewing some of STAR's material online, we didn't feel she was a good fit for our community.
What you see happening here is a situation where another Christian school, ignoring the overwhelming views of traditional Christians on everything from sexuality to gender to marriage, that's the majority Catholic view. It's not this progressive view. You don't care about that when it comes to what the majority of Christians believe. You want to single out the minority of progressive Christians. And so here, Star Parker, who again, on top of everything else, is an African-American woman. You are choosing to label her kind of talk sensationalist. You would think that as a minority and as a female and as a Christian, she would be the perfect underrepresented person to speak to your students, but because her message is not a progressive left-wing message, you smugly suggest that she runs counter to our Christian values. This, my friends, two things. One, mom and dad, I'm going to address you again. If you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to send your kids to a Christian education because you want them to, become Christians or remain Christians, or to at least have their Christian faith sustained, pull out of those schools immediately and find somewhere else to educate your kids, because you're spending all that money to have your kids' Christianity filtered through the sausage maker of progressivism and come out on the other side as ground chuck of secularism, right? You're feeding all of this money and all of this hope that by sending your kids to Christian colleges, they will come out Christians on the other end. It is exactly the opposite. You'd be better off taking that money and writing a check to a Christian charity somewhere, seriously, and have your kids go intern there. That's the first thing I wanted to say about this. And the second thing is, what kind of a world is it where you can't wear a MAGA hat or a Make America Great t-shirt or an NRA t-shirt to a public school because it violates their progressive values? And yet on Christian campuses, you can't be significantly or overtly Christian. If on a Christian campus you are too Christian in terms of your orthodoxy for the progressive Christians, you are not allowed to speak. So you see what we've got here. In progressive public schools, nothing right of center is allowed. In the so-called Christian schools, nothing right of center in terms of Christianity is allowed either. So there is no safe space for kids who have a different worldview.
Oh, safe spaces.
No safe spaces.
But specifically, what Star Parker, her radically held belief and her sensationalized speech, she was going to speak about abortion within the black community. Her quote, "I accepted UNW YAF's gracious invitation to defend life in traditional Christian principles. Abortion has devastated the black community is the moral crisis of our time. Christian universities are precisely where this urgent discussion should be happening."
So let me recap here. Christian schools, by definition, are opposed to abortion, they are opposed to racism, and they are opposed to sexism. Star Parker, who is black, right, is not allowed to speak because her views on abortion are too radical. Star Parker, it's totally in line with Christian theology, is condemning abortion, which is too radical for a Christian university. And Star Parker is a woman who is pointing out that many, many black female babies don't have a right to enter this world, are not allowed to enter this world at numbers much higher than white and Hispanic little baby girls. And all three of those things have offended this Christian university.
Oh, the world we live in. Okay, I think we've delayed it long enough.
We've teased this story a little bit earlier. This is a fun one for us here at the Dr. Duke Show, and it's one that's blown up all across the country. So you got privileged Hollywood moms and dads who are buying their kids into high-quality schools, right? So these people like Lori Loughlin there, and you see Felicity Huffman. Fox News has reported, among many other major outlets, that these celebrities nationwide are embroiled now in a college academic cheating scandal. Wealthy individuals paying up to $6.5 million to get their kids into elite universities. The alleged scam includes positions at Yale, Georgetown, Stanford, USC, UCLA. And it does appear that the universities, at least at the highest levels, were unaware of these scandals. But you had a number of liaisons, oftentimes sports coaches at these universities, who were taking these big bribes to alter these kids' records and to bring these celebutard children onto these campuses at the expense of all of America's kids.
Yeah, so this whole thing, apparently, because the court documents have been shown now, they've been unsealed, and this whole thing was run by William Rick Singer of California. And basically, he would help parents get their children admission through using bribes and all this. And the court documents show that this whole thing was called Operation Varsity Blues. remember that movie, Varsity Blues?
I remember Michael
Dawson's
Scott
Creek,
showing
James Vanderbeek.
I remember Michael Scott showing it on Movie Mondays. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, this Operation Varsity Blues, they've been investigating it for more than a year. So basically, Singer said he actually has already pled guilty to racketeering, and he ran this charity called Key Worldwide Foundation, and he received $25 million in total money to guarantee admissions from, to the various people. So Joseph Bonavolanta from the FBI Boston field office said, this is a case where the parents flaunted their wealth, sparing no expense to cheat the system so they could set their children up for success with the best money can buy. Yeah, and that just says it right there.
Another example of progressive privilege. The only privilege in this country we really should be talking about is progressive privilege. Here are white, almost exclusively liberal Hollywood actresses and actors. The people embroiled in this are high-earning, really, really wealthy California families all over the country. And what you have happening here is that their privilege, their kids don't have to achieve. They will still get into Harvard, Yale. And a lot of people are talking about these stories, and a lot of people are actually pointing out that the university's responsibility in this. I want to do a little bit of that as well. We could dismiss why are we surprised that limousine liberals are going to say one thing and do another? Why are we surprised that half-wit people like AOC are going to drive around in SUVs and fly on private planes while telling you to? So we know how liberal progressivism works. But as far as the universities go, this is troubling to me. Universities claim to have the sole mantle for diversity and inclusion of anybody else in this society. It's the university professors who are constantly lecturing the rest of us about our lack of inclusivity. And when you think about the great Ivy League schools and you think about the high-ranking schools in California, places like Stanford, they're letting people in on the basis of legacy, right? Just because your dad went there, you get to go there. They're allowing people in if mom and dad donate $10 million to the wing of the library.
I want to point out two specific things because it goes back to Felicity and Becky. So the two ways that this whole scam was run was either the academic path, so it was through, falsifying SAT scores or ACT scores, or it was through the, as you kind of mentioned before, the athletic field. So Felicity Huffman went through the SAT, ACT tests, and basically you would get someone else to take your test, and parents would give up to like $75,000 in bribe money to then have an administrator from the SATs and ACTs to kind of fudge it. Well, Felicity Huffman, in William H. Macy wasn't arrested for this, but it did say the two parents, so Felicity Huffman married to William H. Macy, that they allegedly helped their daughter with her college admission by making a purported charitable contribution of $15,000. Okay, so she paid $15,000 to get their daughter into a school.
And on top of everything else, these entitled, privileged, scumbag Hollywood celebrities are couching their venality and graft under the guise of charity. How much you want to bet Felicity's tax accountant took a charitable donation for that? How infelicitous of Felicity.
And it's interesting because they were going to do this again, to do this scheme a second time for their younger daughter, but decided not to do so. I wonder if, I don't know, a conscience grew in that time or something.
Maybe they didn't need the tax write-off that year.
It's a good point. All right. Now on the athletic side, this is where Lori Loughlin's daughters come in, because they've had reports of a Yale women's soccer coach who got $400,000 from the guy who did this entire thing, a Georgetown tennis coach who got more than $2.7 million between 2012 and 2018. And the big thing about these athletic, not scholarships, admissions, they never even played the sport in some instances. And that's what happened with Lori Loughlin's two daughters, who were recruits for the USC crew team. Now that's rowing in a boat. The best part is that Lori Loughlin paid $500,000 to have her daughters go to USC.
If you're going to lay out that kind of scratch to get your kid into a good school, I mean, aim a little higher, for God's sake. It really is frustrating when you stop and think about this. I mean, the level of venality here, again, it's progressives. It's progressives using every advantage while lecturing the rest of us. I'm surprised we haven't found Alyssa Milano's name in this, right? I mean, she would be the perfect candidate, or Deborah Messing, right? You think about the smug wokeness that we keep hearing from Hollywood, particularly these Hollywood women.
And then the whole college thing, yep, I'm living in a dorm with a roommate who's so sweet. With work, it's gonna be hard. Like my first week of school, I'm leaving to go to Fiji for work, and then I'll be in New York a bunch this year for work, and traveling to a different country because I'm creating something with this country, and that's for work. So I don't know how much of school I'm gonna attend, but I'm gonna go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of like game days, partying, really care about school, as you guys all know.
What does it say about your daughter if she really can't get into USC with the legacy of the Laughlin family? She can't get in there.
But $500,000.
I know.
She could have put that $500,000 towards launching the daughter's YouTube channel even more. Like,
how about this? Wisconsin moms and dads, as a professor at the university here, if you want me to write your kids a letter recommendation, 1 pack of waffle fries and a 6-pack. That's all I'm asking you. You don't have to spend $500,000 to help us gerrymander. And in case administrators at the University of Wisconsin are listening to this show, it's a joke.
You know what? I'll be pleased as punch if they are listening to this show. As an alum, they should do a story on me.
They should do a story on you.
Look
and they
where I've gone.
And they should do a story on me, the privileged white male who hired one of my former students at the university to sit here and take my abuse on a daily basis.
Yeah, this is true. I should get paid a lot more.
Exactly.
Anywho. Well, it's time for some extra credits, sponsored in part by narcissism. The Falwells, yes, those Falwells, took some heat last week after discussing how their new granddaughter Reagan would be raised as, wait for it, a girl. Immediately, students organized a protest at Liberty University where Jerry Jr. is president. Simply pointing out that Reagan is a girl meant that the Falwells were being transphobic, according to senior Addison Garner, who organized the protest. But if they're so transphobic, how is it that all these LGBT members can freely protest on the private Christian campus and Falwell supports their right to do so?
So on a conservative Christian campus like Liberty, transgender kids are welcome however stupid they behave. On a small Christian college in Minnesota, progressive Christian college, we can't even have one black female come on to speak about why abortion's bad. Shows you why we're losing the culture war.
Such obvious transphobia is also being touted at the College of Charleston by Professor Rachel McKinnon, a trans woman who claims that excluding trans women, aka men, from women's sports is like excluding black women. Now, he's a philosophy professor, so I'll give him some biology notes. It's the ding-a-ling that we find troubling.
My ding-a-ling, my ding-a-ling.
It's not that you're blue, black, purple, pink, or green. It should be known that McKinnon is also a women's cycling champion, and he hopes to make the Olympics. So he's just a smidge biased. But I'm a woman, so, you know.
Congratulations, America. You have just entered the obscenely absurdist period of your history.
In another man and woman combo, former President Barack Obama continues his surge to influence the future generations. In a speech to a bunch of Canadians, he announced how he plans to create a university for social change. Quote, "If we could form a network of those young leaders, not just in the United States, but around the world, then we got something. If we can train 1 million Baracks and Michelles who are running around thinking they can change the world, hope is achievable." Do you happen to have the definition of the word narcissism?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and we really don't have a single university in this country that's given up education for social justice. That's all of them, right?
Good little progressive Baracks and Michelles are in full force at the University of Texas, Austin, where a newly elected student body president and vice president pledged to out professors who did not undergo inclusivity training, which they claim would mean they can connect with students. Cameron Goodman and Amy Jean said they will implement a training tag system on course schedule and syllabi showing which professors actually participated in inclusivity training. This essential name and shame sounds rather Orwellian, but
maybe when it comes time for University of Texas Austin kids to enroll in classes, everybody gets a series of emoji. That teacher voted for Trump, little orange hair sweep, right? That professor didn't take diversity training, a little Nazi, right?
Well, I'm about to name and shame a University of Southampton professor who knows how to empower women. Feminist Charlotte Riley is proud of herself because she plays patriarchy chicken, meaning she refuses to move out of the way for men when she walks to and from her commute to the university. She wrote all about it in an editorial explaining that women have been socialized to give way, alleviate, conciliate, and to step aside. Her advice? Lean in, sisters. Sharpen those elbows. Collide with some men. All right, now there's a cock and hen joke somewhere in there.
For hundreds of years, men were socialized. Men were socialized to give way for women, to stand when they got on buses, to hold doors for them, to open pathways for women, to make women comfortable before we seated ourselves, to stand when a woman simply entered the room. Feminism killed all that.
And that's your extra credit for this week. Congrats, we made it through. Now if you could do me a solid and comment below with any story ideas you think we should cover, right there, down below. Then keep the comment train rolling by getting your friends to join in the fun. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dr. Duke Show podcast on iTunes. Give us that coveted 5-star review. And please, please, please share this video on Facebook, Twitter, put it on a VHS tape, or, if you're still on beta, and run it over to your neighbor. It all helps us keep the show going.
And that does it for us this week on the Dr. Duke Show. If you like what you heard, please share the podcast with your friends. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, and she's Katie. See you next time.